Well, good day. It's the 7th already of May. Can you believe it? 2021. And I was trying to figure out what to do today. It's going to be kind of light as it is on a Friday. Tomorrow I've got to do First Communion, so that's the little kids are going to be receiving their First Communion, and I'll be very much engaged in that. But what I'm going to speak about today is two things. Number one, cinematic portrayals of federal agents on the TV, and along with that, foreign arrest authority of federal agents. And the two kind of go together, and I'll explain it in a moment. And one thing that you should always remember, when you're considering a federal law enforcement career, any sort, TV is TV is TV. Okay, there are actors and actresses. They make it much more interesting than it is in real life. Okay, now why is that? Because if they showed you what real life was like, no one would watch it. Okay, so you have a show like NCIS, and it shows them doing all sorts of cool stuff, and sometimes the agency does do cool stuff, but I mean, there isn't much interest in showing, bringing in two 20-year-olds who were drunk, a man and a woman, a sailor and a female sailor, and they got drunk and God knows what happened, and the woman is now making an allegation. So you pull in the 20-year-old because the commanding officer said there will be no a zero tolerance of this in my command, and you grill him till he breaks down and cries. He gets a court martial. There's nothing that's interesting about that, or pulling in some kid who's got pornography on his government computer. That's what they spend a lot of their time doing that, and I just, you should have an accurate picture of what you're going into as opposed to a cinematic picture. And a comment that had been made, does the DSS, can they hunt down international fugitives? I don't watch a lot of movies, but the answer is no. Okay, if we find out where someone is located, we have to file a request with the foreign government, and they are the ones who pick the person up and bring them. They hand them over to the United States. The United States federal agents, be it DEA, FBI, will have embassies and agents in those embassies, but those agents are limited in what they can do. They can carry a weapon for their own protection because they have diplomatic immunity. If they make an arrest overseas, that's an act of war. Okay? We did have a case a long time ago where DEA did, without the authority of the Mexican government, arrest someone who was involved in the torture and murder of a DEA agent, and he was under Mexican law. It was very unlawful, but they dragged him into the U.S. and put him on trial. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled on 5-4 in the case that it was allowable. They almost said it was unconstitutional violation of his rights. It turned out he ended up being acquitted, and he went back to Mexico. So it didn't work out. Now, when Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, if you know who he is, he was the mastermind of 9/11. It was DEA agents who led them to where Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was, and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is still in jail, as far as I know, at Gitmo, and his military commission trial just really doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So again, what are some of these cinematic portrayals of agents? Which are the most accurate? Which are not accurate? And there's a Netflix thing, Narcos, which is done by a man named Steve Murphy, who's a retired agent. He's a friend of mine, and he was assigned in Colombia. And it shows him doing all sorts of daring do, and they're shooting it out in Colombia. Okay, a DEA agent again in Colombia does not run around shooting people. That's not what we do. Okay, again, the host country police, if anybody's going to get shot, they're the ones who do the shooting. Well, what does the DEA agent do? You can accompany them. And in his case, they killed Pablo Escobar, and he had his picture taken with the corpse of Pablo Escobar. And he wrote a story about how DEA, over the years, had assisted and provided information to trusted Colombian police, and they hunted down Pablo. Now, I've watched part of it. Quite frankly, it's not realistic, and it just bores me. Okay, so I didn't watch the whole thing. But God bless Steve Murphy, because he's made a fortune on it. Okay, and I'm all for that. And it doesn't glorify Pablo Escobar. That was the one condition he said when he made it. I don't want Pablo Escobar to be glorified. And it makes the DEA look good. But, you know, it doesn't, you know, a lot of the stuff that he's doing in there is absolutely BS. You know, I mean, you just can't do it. Now, have agents ever been allowed to do things overseas? Yes. Dangerous things, such as carrying rifles and shooting people? Yeah. And blowing things up. 2 instances, both applied to my former agency. It will never happen again. And one was an operation that took place from 1988 to 1995 called Operation Snowcap. We used to call it Operation Snowcrap. But we weren't even allowed to say that. If we were caught saying it, it would go down as a negative mark on your evaluation. But what they did is they recruited agents who volunteered, and they were given a Spanish language course and a watered-down Army Ranger training course. And the idea of the operation was they were going to go into South America and find drug labs and blow them up, and in conjunction with the local police, the Bolivian military, the Peruvian police, all these, you know, South American law enforcement agencies were going to work hand in glove, and we were going to stop the flow of cocaine into the United States. Now, what happened? Very little happened. We lost 7 agents. There was no discernible change at all in the drug traffic. What the agents were allowed to do was what the foreign governments, which are very, very riddled with corruption, the military and police, very heavily riddled with corruption. There were some things that were throwaways. They let us raid certain labs, but, you know, they're huge labs. We didn't get anywhere near them, and the cartels were not hurt at all. Okay? And it was finally canceled wisely in 1995 by the Clinton administration because it was dangerous and ineffective. Now, that happened again in 2004. DEA had invaded Afghanistan, and if you don't know, Afghanistan is a huge source of opium poppies. So the DEA created the Foreign Advisory Support Team, which was agents who went through a very tough indoc, and then they went over there and served in a combat role, blowing up heroin labs. Now, did it have a discernible effect? No, it did not. Heroin started pouring out of Afghanistan. Most of the heroin that comes into this country originates in Southwest Asia, which is Afghanistan. And we ended up losing 4 agents in, again, in an aviation-related incident. They were boarding a helicopter, and the helicopter blew up, and they burned to death in the back of the helicopter. Another agent, Joe Prasante, was shot in the head. The bullet rattled around in his head, took out his optic nerve, and he's completely blind. But DEA, to its credit, allowed him to stay on as an agent till he retired. Now, should agents have been doing this? And we're not equipped to do it. We're not the United States military. Okay, Snowcap had the best training they could have, but they didn't have one thing. They didn't have military aircraft. And all of the agents who were killed, DEA has transports. That is not Napa the Earth aircraft. And one, they flew it right into the side of a mountain, you know, looking for a jungle laboratory. Okay, we're not set up for that kind of operation. And again, the same thing in Afghanistan. But wisely, you know, the Foreign Advisory Support Team was abolished in 2014. Now, do I think there are any cinematic, the last point, any cinematic portrayals of DEA, because that's what I'm most familiar with, that are accurate? And I would take you back to a movie that was made in 2000, Traffic is the name of it. It stars Michael Douglas, but it had actual DEA agents, and actual DEA agents advised in the making of the movie. It's about 2 hours. You can watch it on Amazon. Pretty good movie. There is one other series that I'm going to recommend, okay? And that is, you know, I never watched it when it was being made, but I started binge watching it last year because we're all locked up from COVID. It was a series called Breaking Bad. And what do I like about it? Certain aspects of it, you know, it's very good. It shows the effect of methamphetamine on users. It shows the viciousness of the drug cartels. And the guy who played a DEA agent, Hank Schrader, he did a better job of playing a DEA agent than most DEA agents. He's great in that role. But again, you know, are they out there by themselves, you know, shooting up people? No, that's not how we operate. And the way that the group operated on that show versus the way we actually operate, you know, it's not really accurate. But having said that, you know, again, the show had a lot of positive things, you know, that you can say about it. You know, it takes this wimpy high school chemistry teacher and his huge transformation from being kind of a morally upright man to being, in the end, just a degenerate who's been abandoned by his family and ends up dying on the floor of a drug lab. He loses all of his money. The agents, you know, they're kind of, there's Agent Schrader who ends up being murdered out in the middle of the desert and buried nowhere, you know, for all of his troubles. And, you know, those things I think are pretty good indicators. You know, they at least, you know, portray certain truths about the drug trade. That it's vicious, that methamphetamine is a very dangerous and horrible drug, about the Mexican cartels and some of the cultural things, such as the Santa Muerte cult. And it shows DEA, you know, that you're kind of fighting a losing war, but they do the best they can. And a lot of them, like the agent who's portrayed, he has this attitude where he's never going to give up no matter what. He doesn't stop. And so those are positive things. But again, you know, have I ever found something that is an absolute accurate portrayal of federal law enforcement or DEA? And the answer is no. So I've covered a lot of topics in this short video, but hopefully it's been somewhat enlightening for you. But as to the answer, do agents go around in foreign countries and lock people up? No, we can't do that. Okay, we're not allowed to do that. Okay, that's an act of war. That's a serious violation of another nation's sovereignty. But I did give you the two examples, Snowcap and FAST, which are no longer operational and never will be operational again. And that was instances where DEA agents were given military training and a military mission in a foreign country. In Snowcap's case, South America. In the case of the FAST team, it was in Afghanistan and then later on in Honduras. So hopefully it's been somewhat enlightening. And Dean Norris, who played Agent Schrader, he did a bang-up job. Okay, I wouldn't have known he wasn't a DEA agent. So that was good, and a lot of the things that they brought up about the drug trade and the cartel, you know, I think spot on. You know, but again, it's a cinematic version. You know, are they going to have a huge super meth lab underground in the U.S.? No, they'll have it in Mexico, but not in the U.S. It would get busted in the U.S. You know, it'd be too hard to do. They do it in Mexico, but no way in the U.S. So hopefully it's been good. I hope you have a good weekend, and next week we'll talk about more serious topics. Okay? Have a good week.